We're going to call this meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. All right, first, if you'll stand with me, we will do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now to Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, next up we'll have public comments if there are any. Do we have any public comments? No public comments, so we will move on. We will move to executive session at 6:07. Manvel Economic Development Corporation will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations to discuss the following: discuss economic development incentives request for Vault of Beauty LLC. We're going to close the executive session at 6:55 with no action taken, and now we will move on to our regular agenda. Our first item on the regular agenda is consideration and possible action to direct staff on project application 2024-03, Vault of Beauty LLC, being a request for assistance for lease space improvements and equipment needed for Vault of Beauty LLC at the Meridiana Marketplace. I believe we have some representatives. Would you guys like to come up and answer some questions for us? Tell us about what you want to do and what your game plan is, please. Thank you.
Good evening. All righty, so I've never been to one of these meetings, so I'm not sure how to start or proceed. So if you need anything specific from me, please let me know. I guess I can start with how the idea came up. I kind of expounded on some of that in the information you guys may have received, but I've lived in Manvel for about 12 years. I have two daughters. They're both actually, one just graduated from U of H downtown. The other is at University of North Texas. There are no amenities for hair care. And so for the past 12 years, my daughters and I are seeking things to do our hair. And as you can imagine, for the women in the room, that can be burdensome. Just to locate items or find things to take care of ourselves. So there are men essential beauty needs that women have, and to kind of remedy that problem that my daughters have had, talking to some of the other parents at the high school while my daughters were there, we all had the same issue. So my thought was, well, let's come up with something to solve that problem. So that problem is, we don't have any essential hair care products in Manvel. I decided to attend a course at the University of Houston, excuse me, for small business development, and actually won money pitching to them for my idea for the city of Manvel to open Vault of Beauty. So thus far, it has been very successful. I am hoping to close on the lease space next week. I am working with Wallace Bank to secure funding, and every day it has been a journey. I say that I'm closing on a house in a different language, trying to close on this loan, but so far everything has come back extremely positive, so I'm hoping that that can continue. There's just many facets to a beauty retail space as well as a salon. And so my oldest daughter, who also has a degree in health and behavioral sciences, also got her certificate as a esthetician, and so she has been working at a salon for the past 3 years, and she's actually the lead esthetician at that salon. My daughter that is at North Texas will be receiving her degree in supply chain management in May of 2025. And additionally, she's getting a certification as a nail technician. So I encourage my children, I have a son, he's the youngest, but I encourage them, as well as having a degree, have a backup plan. And so my girls have listened. My son is a freshman in college. We'll see if he follows in their footsteps and listens to me as well. So we'll see how that goes. But my hopes and plans are that once we establish the space and we're there, because of the relationships that I have with some of the parents in the community and knowing the needs that we have for a lot of women in the community, just to establish kind of a relationship where we are there to provide these products to the women and the girls of the community. I remember my daughter's in high school, and it's kind of a trendy time for these girls where they're looking to change up their looks, or they want to be able to locate things or find things. Just to kind of enhance their beauty. And so if we're here rooted in the community with them and able to work with the high school and the cosmetology department, I think we can definitely be kind of rooted in the growth of what's to come in Manvel, because we all see it happening. So in a gist, that's kind of my little spiel.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We can open it up to questions, whoever wants to.
Okay. My question is, as far as your background, what's your background?
I have worked in oil and gas for just, I like to say 20 years. I took a little small hiatus, but I currently work for Occidental Petroleum. So I've worked in oil and gas most of my life. Briefly, I did work for a probate attorney. So I've always been kind of involved in organizing or bringing things together. And in the oil and gas background, it's been finance. So working with royalty payments for owners who do get oil and gas revenue, making sure that that's right when someone passes away, those dividends have to pass on to the next heirs. And so hence why I worked for a probate attorney. So kind of have a specific niche in an accounting background, but definitely oil and gas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And piggyback on that, thank you for being here and for your presentation.
I appreciate it.
So what would your role look like within the company, like day to day?
My role would be to make sure that the show runs smoothly. I've been involved with a few people who have run businesses, and I've supported them in certain ways, which has made me feel confident that I can do it for myself. The attorney that I worked for kind of handled all of her books, any financial requests that she would make for the city of Houston. I made sure that I was part of those applications, making sure that she got her certifications to be a small woman-owned business. So I've kind of been involved in helping people do this, and I feel like it's time for me to help myself do this now. So.
Could you also expand on, you mentioned as far as the hair care extensions and wig installation, will you do natural hair care? Will you do just pretty much what type of hair care?
So there will be hair care. We're looking at trying to do this for a number of different women. So if we can imagine women of color and women who aren't of color, we all have different hair requirements. I will say that I have 6 sisters. None of our hair is the same. We all go and look for products, and we won't have the same products. So I will say that all of us except one is natural, and so we have the challenge of sometimes we want to have straight hair, sometimes we want to have curly hair, sometimes we want long hair, sometimes we want short hair. So I feel that if we have the design that we're looking for or the business model that we're looking at, we'll be able to have hair extensions for the women who want the long, lustrous, pretty hair, but there will also be a natural aspect of hair that they can wear. I purchased curly extensions myself. It's straight now just because I had an event this weekend, but normally I will wear curly extensions all the time. So natural hair care is important, especially with federal regulations now addressing hair relaxers, especially for women of color. That's becoming something very dangerous. It's supposedly an element that causes cancer. So I'm hoping that we can steer and educate our clients towards having more natural hair with the option of wearing straight extensions. You don't have to put the chemicals in your hair all the time to achieve, a different beauty.
And, excuse me, hi, nice to meet you.
You as well.
I loved your presentation. Would you also have beauty supplies?
Yes.
Because there is no beauty, the one that is Pearland, so you would have
Absolutely.
a wealth.
Yeah. We're looking at we're having it scaled to 2 portions. We'll have a salon portion with the front end being retail. And so that should attract clients in to visit the salon or kind of suggestive sales. If we have retail in the front and there's the options, you're browsing at all of these products, but now you can go and speak to someone who is a beauty professional, and they can guide you on your purchases as well as suggest some services that you can probably get in the salon as well. So it's kind of like, if you think of the name Vault of Beauty, I like to say it's where you keep your secrets, like your beauty. Like, where do you keep the things you value? You keep them in a vault. And for women, I think we value our appearance and our beauty a lot. So why not get those things from Vault of Beauty?
And I noticed also that you had funding in here, but it expired from the small business grants.
I did receive the funding from Wallace Bank. They have confirmed, as of now, they've confirmed roughly, I'm not sure if I'm able to say amounts or totals in here. They've approved initially $423,000 for the build out to supplement the changes. But if I'm sure you guys may know that the location is shell space. And so I've been able to negotiate additional funding from the landlord as concessions towards the build out, and he's committed to $116,000 towards that build out.
So you negotiated.
Absolutely.
Yes. No, I know someone in this business, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have an idea of what percentage would be products and what percentage would be services?
Absolutely. Excuse me. If you can imagine, with an SBA loan, they have asked me for everything. So I try to keep it all together. I guess I can't necessarily speak on the percentages. We have a few assumptions that we've made where we believe that within the first 6 months, just because we'll have to build a following and develop the brand within the city. But we do believe that, give me 1 second. I had to actually send updated assumptions today, so I want to give you the most recent information. Apologies for the delay. I can signal. So initially starting out, we will have minimum staffing until we can establish enough revenue to secure payroll. So we're looking at 1 esthetician, 2 hairstylists, 2 nail technicians, and a couple of part-time retail employees. So with that being said, if we have minimum staffing, we can assume that we will be able to have enough traffic to do a few appointments per technician per day, just until that, the word of mouth or the buzz gets going. So we're looking at having minimum staffing through months 1 through 6, and if we can look at service revenue for months 1 through 6, we are projecting, okay, months 1 through 6, we're looking at service revenue of, oh, forgive me, my tabs on this Excel spreadsheet won't open. If I may grab my laptop, I can give you more information. 1 second.
While you're looking, I have one follow-up question real quick. Would you be leasing the spots out to the technicians, or would you be actually hiring those technicians?
We plan to hire them. We think we'll have better retention, and it would be less of an issue with retaining customers as well. And there should be an incentive for, with hiring the staff, with commissions and things of that sort. So if they work for us, we feel that they will, if we're committed to them, they'll be committed to us, and they'll stay with their clientele within the space. Okay, here we go. All righty, so we're looking at, as far as salon revenue for the first 6 months of operation. Now, this will vary. These are assumptions that either there are only a few appointments per day, or every appointment is booked for the day with the amount of technicians that we have. But for the first 6 months, we're looking at anywhere between $32,000 in revenue up to $100,000 in revenue. And that's just from facials, eyelashes, waxing, nails, pedicures, and hair services. And if we look at the retail side of things, for the first 6 months, we are projecting, with sales of things such as the hair extensions, styling products, hair accessories, face and body products, we're looking at revenue for the first 6 months to be between $19,000 and $163,000.
I know it's really difficult to forecast that stuff, and it's a
Absolutely.
broad range, so,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
like
telling.
your complete minimums and your absolute shoot for the stars, so
Right. Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
So what do you anticipate would be the impact on this project if you weren't able to secure funding through the EDC?
I think the project will still move forward. I'm just hoping to try to get some, if I can work with the city, I think that that would be a good plus as far as creating marketing buzz about what's to come. If the citizens of Manvel can trust and vote for Manvel, then I think they would take into consideration that if they put that much faith in the businesses or support the businesses that are here, that they would be more prone to shop or go to these local places. We can look at Henri's, we look at Manvel Seafood. Those are staples in Manvel. I actually have friends that live in Sugar Land, and every Friday night, they come down and have dinner at either Henri's or Manvel Seafood. So it's like Manvel has a space for that, and I just want to be a part of that space.
On your application, the amount that you're asking for was 50%, so is it 50,000 that you're
Yes.
asking for from the EDC?
Yes.
And total cost for the build-out looked like you wrote the 300,000. So how did you come up with the ask for the EDC amount?
So what I looked at was, after speaking with the architect and the contractor, we were looking at some of the items that we may need as far as equipment and supplies. And so all of those things are necessary to operate. And I felt like if we could get assistance on the equipment and supplies to operate or function, then that would be a plus for us. Excuse me.
Bobby, does that qualify for you as far as the viability of the project at all?
I mean, under the wild card section, basically if you make that finding that it promotes new or expanded business development, it's all being done now at this time. I'm sure more money would allow it to do more things, I would guess. But if they're already committed, that's one of the things that we try to do is to use our money to lure somebody from instead of going to Sugar Land or Alvin to come to Manvel. If they're already coming to Manvel, you don't have that advantage to say, well, they were going somewhere else, and now we can get them to come to Manvel if we can just do that. So that was the top thing that we're trying to do. But if they, find that you're promoting your expanded business, then that would qualify under the wild card provision.
Also, my question is, what's the length of the lease?
We actually have negotiated a 5-year term with a second 5-year option.
I'm sorry. So just to confirm, the total cost for the build-out was estimated at 300,000, and that you've acquired the funding for through your other resources.
Yes.
And then the proposed estimate for just the supplies needed, the blow dryers, the chairs, all the equipment, that's the 100,000, 95,000 and something, so close to the 100,000. So then the 50,000 was half of that number.
Just half of that number, absolutely.
So for the clawback agreement, what do you base that on? Do you base that on making sure that equipment is purchased and stayed?
That's a tough one. Usually we don't fund equipment. It's usually
So that
designed
was
for
Jason.
an improvement. And then again, the statute would require land, buildings. It does say equipment, but it usually has to do with equipment to equip at facilities. And to build out the facilities, not necessarily, mirrors or chairs. It's more for, equipment, stuff like that. Targeted infrastructure. So it's more designed for bigger things that we've done a sign in front. We've done a grease trap for a restaurant. Things that help them with the business, but they're improvements to that business, not the chairs and the cutlery and the stuff like that,
So on your construction cost, you have a line item in there for fee of $12,422. What is that fee? Is that permit fees? Is that
I can see really quick. Tell me that number one more time.
$12,422.30?
That may have been a portion.
It's on your estimate for the build-out, that lists your site work, doors, hardwood floor.
Oh, yes, that was actually directly from the contractor, I believe. Let me make sure.
It's on his estimate sheet.
Yeah, that's on his estimate sheet. I can't speak specifically what that's for. Those are his estimates for me. I didn't ask specifically about those line items. I just know that he's worked with several other salons before, and so I think that's his best guess judgment on a fee that may be related to possibly, like you said, permitting.
So then possibly if the dollars were assigned, it'd be more geared towards the build-out, maybe permit fees, something like that, not necessarily equipment.
Okay. Absolutely.
Trying to collect my thoughts here. At this point, does anybody have any more questions that she can answer, that maybe just to clarify some clarifying questions, or does everybody feel like they know what's going on?
If I had another question, it would be just trying to visualize the build out. So like what of the, it was just over 3,000 square feet, if I remember.
Or just under. Yeah, just under.
3,000. So what percentage of that square foot is your front end retail space, and where you're doing your hair care, where the nail portion is going to be? What would that look like?
So we're looking at having, like I mentioned earlier, the retail space up front. I should have sent pictures. We do have a few concepts that we're going back and forth between. But the front space, like I said, will be the retail space. We're hoping to have something that is very clean and easy to visualize or see the products without the clutter. A traditional beauty supply, I like to call this one a beauty boutique, because a traditional beauty supply, items are crammed on shelves, and so if you go more of a boutique type of method, you don't have to have so many products on the shelf, which causes for less loss of product. So if we manage to keep it very open and only minimal products out, that would be great. And so if you walk towards the back of the space, it'll be more tranquil, more relaxing. We're looking at having on one end the nail technicians. We're not going to have tons as a nail-specific salon, but there will be, we're looking at 5 chairs for the nail stations, as well as about 4 or 5 chairs for the hair stations. So that would be on one side of the back of the space. The other space, because we're looking at doing facials and body treatments, would have to have rooms that are somewhat a reduction in noise, so that you can have a tranquil facial or a massage or, you know, whatever you're having done. So that space will definitely have some separation and kind of a mystere. Like if I were to walk, I hate to say this, but like a speakeasy, you know, you walk into it and you don't really know what's happening, and you can hear something, but you just want to go and see what's over there. So we're not looking at it being that way, but just knowing there's something taking place. What else is back there? What else can I go and see? So kind of like when you're in a bank and the vault door is propped open, you kind of want to peek in and see what's inside. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I think there's a couple hurdles here for me. And I think, unfortunately, it's almost that you get penalized for having your poop in a group, right? Because you have access to the money, because you're going to do this project with us or without us, right?
Correct.
And we're a little more designed to do the projects that aren't going to move forward if we're not a part of it.
Okay.
Or that are, you know, that are infrastructure projects to bring somebody to town that wouldn't normally come to town, or perhaps we're competing with another town. I'm encouraged by everything you say. I'm super impressed. I mean, I think that you have your stuff in line. I think you're going to be very successful. But that, you know, I don't think it's even fair necessarily for that to be the case. But I kind of feel like that's the way that this works for us. I'm not saying no to that. I'm just kind of, that's just my opinion of it a little bit, that you are so on top of things and you have everything so well lined out in a plan that you almost don't need us.
Okay.
But the second thing is that we are in the middle of our strategic plan that's going to be like the strategic plan for the next 5 years for our board, and we don't get the results on that until November.
Okay.
We've invested a lot of money and time into putting this plan together, and we're kind of in limbo as to exactly what direction we're going to go in with our investments right now.
Okay.
I think as a group, I don't think anybody's opposed to to helping and being a part of this. I think we just need a little bit more time to figure out what our direction is going to be.
Okay.
And so one of my questions is, if we push this back a couple months until we know what our strategic plan is, and maybe we are able to revisit it then, is that something that would stop you from moving forward with the project, or would you still be able to do what you need to do?
I would say it would not stop me. I think there may be a better opportunity for me to fine-tune the plan as far as talking to the GC, the contractor, and the architect to see what other items, things always come up in the build process. And so I can only imagine that something may come up between now and the time that you guys reconvene where I may need the assistance. And so just to kind of keep that open line of communication or possibility, it'd be great to be able to have the opportunity to represent again or see what needs I have in the future.
Yeah, and I think this was great because we all have a background on what you're trying to do and what your goals are. I don't want to lead you in a direction, positive or negative. I just think at this moment, for us, the smartest thing to do would be to postpone it until we have a better idea of our own direction.
I can appreciate that.
Okay?
Yes.
So should we make a motion to postpone until December? Somebody?
I make a motion to postpone it till December.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Motion passes. We got 7-0? Nope, 6-0. Thank you so much for
I appreciate
coming.
it. Thank you,
We really-
guys.
Yeah, appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, now we'll move on to regular agenda. Item B, presentation on Placer.ai, Civic Solutions, Location and Analytics and Insights for Civic Leaders.
So Brooke has everything set up, right?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, so y'all aren't gonna be able to speak while he's speaking, or we get that interference. So, if you wanna hear, I'll say that. Hi, MEDC members. So we are having some technical issues. While Jack is speaking, y'all are not going to be able to use y'all's mics just because we will have that feedback interference that y'all just heard. But otherwise, if you want to hold all your questions until the end, then y'all will be able to speak back and forth.
A couple minutes here to explain at the beginning who we are, what we do, how we do it. I'll spend about 5 minutes just doing that, and then we'll actually dive into the platform, look at Manvel, look at how we're going to affect economic development, how we can help with that. And then, yeah, I'm going to save 10, 15 minutes at the end, get your guys' questions answered. So yeah, keep them, just write down your questions as we go, and then try and cover them all towards the end. So can you guys all see the screen that says Civic Solutions? Maybe a thumbs up.
We're getting it set up right now.
Before, so just let me know.
All right, I think we're ready to go.
Awesome. So Placer, we're a location analytics company. So we leverage mobile location data to provide market insights for any place in the US. So we do this by harnessing data from millions of mobile devices, and then we anonymously aggregate that data to tell a story about any place. So you could think of a shopping center, a retailer, a whole city. It could be a downtown strip, however you want to kind of look at the data. So not only can we tell you how many people are coming to a place, but we can also show you where those people are coming from in terms of where they live. We can show you where they work, and we can also show you where else they like to go. So if they're leaving Manvel, are they shopping elsewhere? Where are they spending their money? How do we retain that business? That's kind of where the economic development side of things comes in. Now, in the past 5 years, we've become the leading data provider now for over 4,000 customers. So Civic is our fastest growing and our biggest vertical. That's where we're finding the most successes within economic development, tourism, events, being able to just understand who your city is, how do they perform, how do they stack up against other cities and things like that. To just kind of explain how we get our data. So we spent about 3.5 years prior to selling Placer just building out our data and algorithms. So we went out and we partnered with a couple dozen different mobile app partners. So you can think of an app you might download on your phone. When you opt into the location services for that app, you're then opted into Placer's panel. Now you have to opt into location services at all times. Now, when we receive that data, we don't collect any personally identifiable information. We're a privacy first company. We're compliant with all privacy laws. So it's not Jack's phone. It's not Jack's address. It's just the movement of mobile devices to understand the movement of people. I always like to just share this slide. Like I said, privacy first company, it is something that we take very seriously. Again, we're not collecting any of that personally identifiable information. It's being sent to us stripped of that information. These are the top 9 ways that civic organizations generally utilize Placer. I'm going to kind of stick to the economic development ones, supporting local businesses, attracting retailers, maybe even some workforce analysis and business retention. If over time the city wanted to expand its use cases, look into using it for events to track how many people are coming to events, or you want to use it for tourism, or if you guys have parks that you're trying to open, or you're trying to understand which parks are doing well, that's something you guys could add over time, kind of into your repertoire as you utilize Placer. So I'm going to pop over here to Placer itself. So Placer is just a website that you guys would come and log into. So we determine who the users are, and you guys would have your own logins and accounts. So we mapped out the whole United States. We drew a geofence around it. So any place in the United States that you want to get data for, you can come in here, type in any address. So, for example, we'll do Manvel. Now, what you're going to see pop up here are different points of interest. So you can see, like, you got your Dollar General here, the Cajun Cafe, different places. And you'll see on here, you can see this place is what we call geofence. So we've drawn a fence around it. Now we're able to understand how many people are coming to that place. We have data back to January 1st of 2017. So I'm sure maybe this restaurant has changed over time. But if you want to know, okay, how many people were coming here in 2017 or 2018, 2019, whatever you want to do, you can get down to a specific day, or you can get down to a specific week, month, whatever you want to do. Now, let's say that you had a place in here that was not geofenced. So maybe you have a local business you want to geofence, a park. You can do a create a point of interest, and you can just draw it yourself. That takes no more than 30 seconds. You draw it up, and we're able to, again, get you data back to 2017 of how many people have come there, where were they before and after, all that good stuff. You're not limited to points of interest either. So if you want to request it from our team to draw it, or you want to draw it yourself, you can do that. You're limited to size when you do your own create a point of interest. Anything over 5 million square feet has to be added by our team, but we can add anything. We can add a whole city or a whole county. So really, however you guys want to go about looking at the data. I know that there was a Starbucks down here, so I was just planning on using this as an example. I'll get that pulled up. If you guys have another idea of something you want to utilize or look at, we can do that. But this might suffice. Just let me know if something pops up into your guys' heads. So if we utilize the Starbucks here, what it did is it brought up what we call a local comparable. So it actually brought up another Starbucks over here in Iowa Colony. This is what we call, like I said, local comparable. So it's bringing up a nearby location of similar status. Generally, if you bring up a Starbucks, it'll bring up another Starbucks, or it might bring up a different type of coffee shop. If there's a competing Dunkin' Donuts nearby, it could bring up that. You may agree with it and keep it. You can take it off. You can add up to 8 different competing locations. So if you want to compare your Starbucks to 6 other ones throughout the state, you can do that. We'll just focus on the Manvel one here. So that's what's going to be in purple. Again, you can do a custom date range for any period of time that you would like. So again, that could be 1 day, it could be 7 years. And then also something that's great about Placer, we've got data as recent as 3 days ago. It's the 9th, we have the 6th. Tomorrow on the 10th, we will have the 7th. We update daily, so you'll always have a new day's worth of data to play with, and you're not going to be behind the curve in terms of looking at retail analysis from 2015 when you can get it within 3 days. Now, I'll explain what these numbers mean here. Panel visits refers to the actual number of mobile devices that Placer monitored going into our Starbucks here. Now, Placer has a panel of 30 million mobile devices. So that accounts for about 8% of the US population. So it's a very large number. It helps us boast very high accuracy. Now, out of the 30 million mobile devices over the last 12 months, we know ground truth data that 21,600 of them came into this Starbucks. Now, that obviously doesn't account for the whole population, so that's where we extrapolate. We're telling you that you had 55,800 individual unique visitors coming to this Starbucks. Now, they're visiting on average 4 times over the past 12 months, so they're obviously coming to get coffee multiple times a year. So that brings you to your total number of visits, which is 225,000, we'll call it. So this is your total number of visits to the Starbucks, and this is the total amount of individual unique visitors. You can also see how this location has performed year over year. I'm assuming this is a newer location in terms of within the past 2 or 3 years, just considering how well it's done there at this location. We've also got filters here. If you were looking at the whole city, you wanted to just see all the people that work in the city or people that live. So you can filter for visitors or employees or residents. And then again, with kind of date ranges, you got day ranges if you just want to look, how is it performing on Fridays or Saturdays? How long are people staying? So visit duration, I know with coffee shops, QSRs, like fast food restaurants, people want to know, I want to account for everybody, the people that are just here for 2 minutes and the people that are here for 30 minutes. So you can affect the filters there. And then if you guys ever came to tourism, I always like to point this one out. This is just kind of a cool feature. You can filter for people that have a home distance, and then you can choose more than. And let's say you said anybody that comes from outside of 15 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever you guys decide, you could just see how many people came to a specific place that have a home location outside of 15 miles. And that way you can break down, how is it from a tourism standpoint? How are we bringing people in? Visit trends. So this is just looking at a daily look at how this spot has performed. The Starbucks, looks like there's a big drop off here. A lot of our cities, what they'll do, they will take their sales tax from previous years and they'll begin to work through Placer and look at the correlations in their sales tax. And what they're able to do is start projecting their sales tax and understanding how does foot traffic directly correlate and how can we begin to kind of look into the future and see how our sales tax is going to be, how can we forecast it? This one's an extra cost. This little report here, this is sales trends. Now this is only available for chains, but you can actually see how the Manvel one is doing on a sales estimation. And again, this can be drawn out over a couple years or probably since it's been opened to see how it's changed. And then again, we're comparing it to the other one in Iowa Colony. I'm going to pop over here to trade area. So trade area is going to look at all the people who came to this Starbucks location one time over the past 12 months. This is their home locations. Now, again, Placer is not collecting any personally identifiable information. So this is not anybody's direct home location. It's based off of census block groups, and then it's anonymized so we can determine where they're coming from. And what we're doing is when we're looking at a mobile device, we're putting in codes to understand when a mobile device is resting in a place from, goes there 7 days a week and it's there from 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. That's now marked as a home location. Same thing with work. Where does a mobile device rest 40 hours a week, 5 times a week? That's now marked as a work location. So we're looking at people that visited one time to our Starbucks over the past 12 months, and we're looking at their home locations. And then here's the people that visited the Starbucks. Here's where they're working. So you can even see people are traveling out to Alvin to go work that are likely residents of Manvel. And there's a ton of different ways to kind of filter through these and different ways to view maybe how you guys are losing maybe some workforce and how do you retain that. That's the heat map view. This is just a zip code breakdown of where people are coming from that are visiting our Starbucks here in Manvel. This is, a lot of cities in terms of kind of their small business support. If they've got some small businesses that are coming in and wanting to see where are our customers coming from, how do you kind of help inform them? This is a great tool to be able to show them, hey, we're able to actually tell you where your customer base is coming from and inform marketing decisions and things like that. I'm going to pop over here to our visitor journey. So this is where people were directly before and where they went directly after visiting our Starbucks. So you can just get an understanding of where else they are visiting. That was the top 5 here. We collected 431 locations where they were before and after. And this can be broken down by category as well. Now, I think a great way to look at this is favorite places. So what we're looking at here is out of all the people who came to our Starbucks, what other places did they visit? So just under 70% of them also went to Silver Lake Village over in Pearland. So this is where we're going to start getting an idea of retail leakage, or why are people leaving our city to go shop elsewhere and where are they traveling to? This can be broken down by category. So if you did want to know, okay, where are people leaving to go eat? So, okay, they're going to the Chick-fil-A over there in Alvin or Raising Cane's in Pearland. You can see how far they're willing to travel to get to these places. And this might start help inform where are our residents, where are they traveling to get other amenities? And maybe we want to look to start bringing in one of these amenities. Dining, groceries. I know I was kind of a fly on the wall for the last presentation for the hair salon. And so what I actually did is come in here and look at, okay, beauty and spa, where are people traveling? So you can see, just like that woman had mentioned, there didn't seem like there was any places within Manvel to actually get these needs. So you can see where people are actually traveling to. So this can definitely inform, do we have leakage? Are people leaving for these amenities? And is it wise to bring in a business like this? And something like this could definitely be used to say, yeah, people are traveling outside of Manvel to get these amenities. And here's the numbers of how many of them are going to do that. Now, this is just for the people that visited Starbucks, so maybe you want to look at the whole city of Manvel itself, so you could get that geofenced and then look at the people who live in Manvel and understand how they're shopping. One other report right here is favorite chains. So out of all the people that came to our Starbucks here, what chains are they visiting? 95% of them have gone to a Walmart. Doesn't particularly mean, it's a Walmart nearby. It could be across the country, but they've been to a Walmart, a McDonald's, an H-E-B, Shell, Chick-fil-A. Again, this can be broken down by category. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, we want to bring in some retailers, we want to bring in a quick service restaurant, how do we figure out what our residents want? You could say, okay, maybe McDonald's, maybe Chick-fil-A is who we should be looking at attracting. We had a city in Arizona that actually presented to the Placer team. They were utilizing Placer, and so they came on to just kind of give us an idea of how they were utilizing it. And what they shared was that they had a vacant space, and they were looking to fill it, obviously, and they wanted to determine who the best tenant would be. And so generally what they had been doing in the past was just taking the highest bidder, right? Whoever they put out the RFP or the bid, people come back, they say, hey, we want to move in here. This is how much we'll give you guys. What they utilized Placer for was to actually determine that even though Winco was not the best in terms of what they would pay, they were the best in terms of the demand from the people in their city. And also that would return the most dollars per square foot. And so over time, they would actually end up making more than if they went with the highest bidder. So using it as a vetting service, if you do have multiple retailers that are trying to move into Manvel, how do you determine who the best one is? And over time, which one's going to result in the most sales tax? I'm going to run a void analysis here. So the void analysis tool is a huge economic development tool that Placer provides. What this is going to look at is, let's say you've got a vacancy. Again, you're trying to fill it. How do you determine who's going to be the best? What Placer does is it actually compiles a list of all the chains in America, and it says determining based off of the square footage that you input. Because obviously, if you're just trying to fill a coffee shop, you don't want to get Buc-ee's recommended or anything like that. So you can mess with the square footage, but it's going to give you a list of reasons why this specific chain is the best fit chain for Manvel. And what you can do, obviously, is put that report together and get it sent off to that chain and try and attract them into Manvel. So I'm going to just scroll down here. I'll toggle on chain operating state. I've found that this is a good way to look at it. A lot of these chains, if they're not operating in a state, they don't always want to move out there. But if they are already in it, it's definitely easier to get them in. Now, you can see how many of locations they have in the state and in the US. So Smoky Mo's Barbecue, all 19 of its locations are within the state of Texas. What you can also see is how they're expanding. So you can see like Casual Male XL is down 20% in the United States. Smoky Mo's up 5.56%. So what you might be able to do is get ahead of the curve and learn, okay, Smoky Mo's, we're trying to attract a restaurant, trying to figure out who would be a good fit. Smoky Mo's is already on the move in Texas. So how do we get them to look at Manvel rather than maybe some nearby cities who just maybe they have a bigger population, and so they assume, well, we should move there because there's more people, whereas Manvel might be a better fit. So, for example, say we went here to Smoky Mo's. I'm going to run this little thing called match analysis. This is going to break out why Smoky Mo's would be a good fit for Manvel. Demographic fit score. So we're able to look at all the Smoky Mo's in the nation, and as Placer, we're able to tell you how does it rank. For example, if I go back here to our Starbucks and scroll down here, this is ranking all Starbucks chains. So you can see, okay, in the nation, got top 30%, Texas, top 30%, and the local 15. So you can actually learn, maybe you guys have a top performing business in the area that you didn't realize was doing so well. And you can take that and say, hey, maybe this isn't the greatest example, but maybe our Dollar General is the top 85 percentile of all Dollar Generals. And maybe the retail space nearby is worth more because of something like that. So we're comparing all the top Smoky Mo's barbecue locations. You guys actually have a 95, what we call demographic fit score. So your demographic has a 95% correlation to the top performing Smoky Mo's barbecue locations. 0% cannibalization. Obviously, these businesses are worried about cannibalizing on any of their existing customer base. They don't want to open a location that's too nearby to one location that they already have open, and they don't want to bring on the same trade area or land on top of themselves, basically. So this breaks out down here. You can see the nearest location is up in Woodlands. The trade area for if you guys did open one in Manvel, this is kind of the idea of where those people would come from to visit Smoky Mo's. So it's not cannibalizing on this one, so you guys have 0% cannibalization. So again, this is going to break out all these different things, all these different reasons why they'd be a good fit. And again, you can send this out to them. All our reports are exportable. Everything I've showed you is exportable. Let's say Smoky Mo's, you want to put this together to avoid analysis. Here's the location you guys want to move it into. Here's why it would be a good fit. Breaking all that out here. Household income, education. How does it match up with top performing Smoky Mo's? Even the age is 98%. Wow. Pretty quick co-tenants. A lot of these businesses like to follow each other around. So maybe because it's if you had a location that you could open up nearby a Starbucks, it might be a good fit. One other thing I'll show you guys here, and then we'll kind of start wrapping things up. This is our demographics tab. So I'll do that. I'm going to change our ring here to just 2 miles. I know Manvel's not huge, so that should kind of capture the Manvel population. The pink that we're seeing here is the top 70% of visits to our Starbucks. So that's actually an idea of who's coming to visit this Starbucks and what is their population or demographic or psychographic. Something that I showed Tammy previously was this market outlook tool. This is a great tool to determine what is needed in the area. So again, the orange ring that we're seeing down here is our 2 mile ring from the Starbucks. That's going to be represented here on the right, the orange number. So in that 2 mile area, you've got a demand of $132 million. And then there's only a supply of 78 million. So as economic development professionals, you want to understand where are we missing the mark in terms of the demand and how do we hit that mark? How do we fulfill the needs? So, for example, in the 2 mile area, grocery stores, there's a demand of 15 million, but in the 2 mile area, there's only a demand, or there's demand of 15, but there's a supply of 18. So there's actually an oversupply here. So according to that 2 mile area, and you may want to change the mileage based off of kind of what you want to look at, but there's an oversupply of $3 million. So bringing in a grocery store, at least compared to the 2 mile area, may not be your exact need. Now, again, referring back to the previous presentation, let's say you did want to know, what do health and personal care stores look like? There's a demand of $6 million, $6.5 million, but we're only supplying 1.45 million. There's an unmet demand of over $5 million. So informing your guys' decisions about economic development, do we want to support the bringing in of this business? Does it make sense for the city? And then as a whole, let's say that business does open up, you guys could geofence that business and understand how is it performing? How many people are going there? Are they in decline? A lot of cities will use this even to look at shopping centers. It could be specific businesses, but shopping centers will break out the tenants and how they're performing year over year and inform them, hey, are we going to have a tenant that's going to be leaving soon? Do we need to be ready for them to head out? Or if a place is doing really well, maybe you guys aren't in charge of this, specifically, but sometimes cities will be charging rent to these places because they own them. Do we want to try and increase our rent there because we know this place is doing so well? This is just one data set pack that I clicked on. There is a ton of different ones in here. Census data. One I always like to look at is pop stats. So just informing general demographic and psychographic information. What's the population in the area? How many households do you have? How many people per household? What's your median house value? Or obviously your household income. The middle line here represents the number 100. So in our 2-mile area, here's our numbers. This is being compared to a nationwide average. I'll flip it over here to the state average. So again, the middle is 100. Everything to the right is where you have more than the state average. Everything to the left is where you have less than the state average. So households in poverty, you only have 21. That's far less than the state average. But your household income is higher than the state average. So obviously there's no time to go through all these, but really a more in-depth breakout than the census data, and also very up to date. What ethnicity is being served. A lot of economic development teams will use placer data to win grants to show, hey, we're serving people that are maybe in poverty or a underserved ethnicity. So you can use data like this. Also employment information, employment by occupation. That's all broken out here. One last thing I'll show you guys, and then we will wrap up here. This is looking at vehicle traffic volume. So how many people are traveling on these roads on a given day? You can break out. Okay, so from our point here, we've got 19,000 cars traveling along this road per day. And then down here breaks out per day. So Monday, you guys see around 20,000 cars. And then how's that broken out here? Definitely can help if you have a business that's looking to move in. How do you show that they're going to have people that are driving by, and how do you quantify these roads? Plan development shows developments that are popping up in the area. This can be broken down by category. Just for example, Valencia section, not sure what that one is. Perry Homes is in the planning phase. Again, this can be broken down. So if you just want to see, okay, what retailers, what residential, and what grocery stores are being built in the area. So you can see Firehouse Subs. I think that's what that was. Oh yeah, Firehouse Subs. It's been recently completed, but you can see ones that are in the construction phase. So you got an AutoZone popping up in the area. So can definitely inform what's going on around you guys and how do you show growth going on in the city. And then last thing here is our crime profile. So we're just looking over from August 31st to September 30th. We do 90 days. This is just going to break out what crimes being reported in the area. So good to show that you guys have a safe city. If somebody wants to move in, they don't need to be worried about crime. There's definitely more within Placer, but that's kind of the general start that I'll give. So I'll wrap up there. So we've got some time for some questions, and we can kind of figure out what we want to do from there.
Thank you very much. We'll wait until everybody gets back to their seat.
So, thank you for the presentation, sir. I'm curious how precise the location is as far as being able to view not only how many people are visiting, let's say, a particular strip center, but what if we want to know only one particular retail space within that center?
Yeah, great question. We can get as granular as you would like. So if you need to, again, if you're looking at a whole strip center or a shopping center, and you just want to see, hey, how's our T-Mobile doing, or how's our Starbucks doing, you can geofence individually that place, and it would only be able to look at that. So you can get down to individual stores.
Sorry, I should have asked this at the same time. So if 5 million square feet is the maximum, what is the minimum?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure what that answer is. I would guess honestly, like it could probably be like 20 feet. I mean, probably pretty small. Now you wouldn't get much data unless it's a heavily populated area. But I'm not sure what the minimum is. But it's definitely, you know, small stores, something like that. You could get down to.
I have a question in reference to how are the visitors classified? Like, how is that determined? Is it from the profile of the cell phone user? And also, in addition to that, with the data being captured, is it, for instance, if you have a cell phone person who owns the phone but is not using that phone, how is that captured as a visitor? Could you tell me how is the visitor determined?
Yeah, so I guess what we're doing when we're looking at a geofence, we're understanding from our panel how many people are going into that place. Now, we obviously use a bunch of extrapolations to account for the rest of the US population, since again, we're not looking at the entire United States in terms of our panel. Now, we use different algorithms at different places. So if we're looking at a Walmart, we will use a different algorithm than we are when we're looking at Starbucks, because people tend to visit that differently. We're also taking into account how many people live in, what's like the household average for people that live in a household. Is it 3 people or is it 5 people? So that is an extrapolation. We don't have an exact number in terms of, we're not 100% accurate. Now, to answer the accuracy question, we're obviously constantly back tested on this data. That comes from our biggest clients like Target, Best Buy, Coca-Cola, Amazon. We always come in between 93 and 98% accurate on our estimations. And so we are accounting for multiple people in a family, or kids that don't have phones, things like that. So generally, it's going to come in 93 to 98% accurate on that place. In terms of maybe the data science answer to that, I'm not too sure all that goes into data science, just because that's not my field of expertise particularly. But I would just point to our accuracy as kind of how we get that visitor's number.
I'm sorry, as far as the demographics, how is that data captured from like a user? Is it based on their profile from the cell phone company, or how is it captured?
Great question. Yeah, so the data in terms of demographics, so we're partnered with multiple different demographic data set providers. So AGS is one of them, STI, all the demographic data sets that we have, you can actually click into, we've got a little thing called Marketplace up there that's going to break out how they get that data. We're obviously looking at census data, but in terms of the demographic breakouts and those other reports, those are from separate companies, because we don't collect the person identifiable information. Obviously, we're not able to determine ethnicity or age, anything like that. It all comes from census data overlaid with the demographic data set partners that we have.
So the data, when it's captured, that's only the data that you capture. That's only if a person is using their location services?
That's correct. Yeah, they would have had to have downloaded an app that we're partnered with. Now we're partnered with a couple dozen, so quite a few on the App Store. And that the reason that we did that obviously is to get a bigger panel size, but obviously to account for all the different types of people who download different types of apps.
And then the source for the employment data, is that from, what's your source for the employment data?
Yeah, let me see here. It depends what which data set provider you're utilizing. Let me see, when I was looking at Pop Stats, I know they had one on there, so I can kind of point you to their direction. So that is with the company called STI. Now, I'll just read this. This is what we have on our website. PopStats data is collected from several public data sources like U.S. Census, NCHS, NCES, IRS, and BEA. So that they collect from a variation of different sources to get that, whether it be demographic, psychographic, workforce data sets.
I got one. So as far as the sales trends, is that based on, with the example of Starbucks, how many visitors you're seeing were present there, and we know how much the average visitor spends there? Is that how you guys are calculating the sales trends?
Yes, sir. So we're compiling data from public records in terms of these companies will put out their sales reports, comparing that, and then also using how many people are coming into their stores, and then transactional data to understand credit card spend, and then the average ticket spend at a place like Starbucks in the area, and then we're able to draw out from there to determine what the estimated sales would be. Larger chains. It's not like mom and pop shops or anything like that.
I have one question. Do you guys produce any income from any of these chains or any advertising to push certain chains, or is it all just data driven?
All just data driven. So you would, as the customer, you'd have access to the data, and it shows up raw. It's not weighted in any way to support Starbucks or McDonald's or anything like that.
I will say, I mean, the data is awesome. I was telling Dan, I think we could nerd out on this for weeks on end and never, come across the same data twice, probably, even in our city. So we do appreciate your presentation, and, I hope that we can talk to him again.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys all taking the time. I'm sure you guys are busy, and so I appreciate you taking a look here. One other thing I'll mention, if you guys did sign on with Placer, you're assigned a customer success manager. I know, like you said, you could get lost in this data, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, right? It's almost like there's so much to it. It's good. That means you're not going to, get to the end of the rainbow there. However, how do you kind of navigate that? How do you train on it? You're assigned that customer success manager. They onboard and train you guys. They're just a resource. It's a named individual who only works in the state of Texas. So they're going to work with other Texas reps, or other Texas organizations that are utilizing Placer in terms of cities, counties, EDCs. So they can train you and onboard you, but they can also say, hey, this is how that local EDC is using it. Or if you guys need to build out a report, they can build it for you. If just constant onboarding and training throughout your subscription.
Is there a restriction on how many people can log in if, like, an EDC like ourselves were to get this service? How many people would have access to it, and do you restrict that?
Yeah, we would determine who all would need it. Now it's not particularly restricted, but when you start, it would be like, okay, we've got 6 individuals who are utilizing it, or maybe it's just one, however you guys want to go about it. You can add them over time. There's a cost associated with that. But you determine how many you need up front, and that'll we'll get you guys logins there.
I'm sorry, my final question was the data source for the crime profile data. What's the source for that data?
Yep. Let me pull up. Yeah, so it is a third-party data set. I'm not sure who the company is that provides that one, but that says that they collect data from various sources, including police departments, news outlets, and user submissions. So I would assume it's just based off public crime information. It just compiles that onto a map.
Hey, Jack, it's Tammy. How are you? Can you go over some of the pricing that you had gone over with me? So there's no action, like I explained on the agenda. It was just to give the board a preview of something that's available to them. Can you kind of go over some of that pricing and how it's classified by the size and what we talked about on that?
Yeah. So what we basically do is we're looking at population. That's how we, as Placer, for our civic customers, determine what the price should be. So we're looking at the population of Manvel. So for a 1-year deal, it would be 16,000. That's what we quoted originally, Tammy. So that includes your CSM. That includes your users for economic development. And we also talked about doing a multi-year deal. That obviously comes with some pricing incentives. So if you did a 3-year deal, for example, it would be 13,000 for the first year, 14,444 for the second, and 17,333 for the third. And those prices are locked in, and obviously you get the discount up front. Rather than paying 16 for the first year, you start at 13. That way the increases aren't as high. So if you started at 16, next year it would probably be closer to 18. Whereas if you did a 3-year, you save there.
Thank you, Jack.
Jack, I have one final question. I think this is my last question. Does that include training with the price?
Yes, ma'am. We schedule onboarding right up front. So you'll have multiple onboarding sessions to determine how do you guys want to use it. Here's how it's best utilized. With that customer success manager, what we often see is that they'll set up recurring meetings. Generally, that's bi-weekly or once a month to just, again, go over how you're using it. What do you need training on? We want to support you guys during your subscription. It's not just like, here's your logins, we'll see you next year. So as much training as you need, you'll have with Placer.
Hey, I'm sorry, Jack. So I think the piece I missed in our original presentation, when you started this one out, there were some different modules that you had said you kind of focused on the economic development part, but then you said, the city, maybe if there were something with parks and there were some other ones, but then you mentioned an extra price. What exactly is this pricing covering module-wise, and how much would the extra ones be in the sense of, let's say, we're in the process of developing parks throughout the city. So what would it look like if the city and the EDC wanted to kind of partner with some of those extra modules?
Yeah, good question. One question, and then I'll answer that. Is the EDC separate from the city, or is it like enveloped in the city?
No, we're a separate entity.
Oh, okay, got it. That's okay. I'm not too sure on that. I'd probably have to get back to you on that answer. Because the city would be a separate organization from the EDC, it might be a little bit different. If it was separate organizations, generally, how we would go about that is selling it as two separate subscriptions, two separate organizations. So it would almost like be a repeat of the 17,000 or 16,000. Now, Tammy, you're
Jack, we just identify as separate, but really we're one. It's all one.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, whatever you identify as, right? Well, we would have to, we'd have to figure that one out, and that's maybe something we could determine offline. But I'm not too sure. We'd have to kind of figure out the logistics of that one.
So just to clarify on that we're separate in the way of the Economic Development Corporation gets a piece of the sales tax that's brought into the city, and then the rest of the sales tax goes to the city. But everything that the Economic Development Corporation power-wise does, they're appointed by a city council from the city, and the city council makes the ultimate final decisions. They approve the economic development budget. We don't have a separate housing facility. Our meetings are within the city hall that's operated through the city council. So there's a little pot of money separate for the Economic Development Corporation, but at the end of the day, it aligns with all the goals and everything within the realm of the city council for the entire city. So I'm not really sure we're separate in that sense, because at the end of the day, we're all, yeah. Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah. And so that's kind of, I guess, where I would have to go to my team and figure out like what's the legal difference between one organization versus another, because it kind of seems like the EDC is a part of the city, like you said, in that way, right? You guys get the funding. You're supported by them. The council approves the things that the EDC does. So it sounds to me like it's the same organization in the maybe legal sense. So again, I'd have to kind of get maybe more clarification on that from my team and then you guys. And then I could get you more concrete pricing on, let's say you wanted to add some users that were focused on Parks and Rec, then I could get you maybe a price that adds them on.
How are other cities utilizing it? Are you noticing that it's either just a city using just parks and just city-related things, and only economic development corporations using just all things sales tax related? I mean, there's many economic development corporations that are combined with the city as well, as opposed to separate entities. How are they doing it?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, it's hard to speak individually. I would say in terms of, there are some economic development people that we speak to that don't use, that are not utilizing Placer. It really depends what your focus is. If you're trying to kind of grow the city, if you're trying to attract retailers, if I guess what I showed you today is relevant to you. Sometimes, I've met with community development people who just are like, oh, I'm in charge of planning and zoning stuff. So it's kind of like there's not a fit there. So to answer, I guess, your question, it really depends on each individual city. If a parks team, sometimes the economic development team is using it and the parks team hasn't seen it. And then once they see it, they go, oh, we could use this to determine what's our most popular park, or should we be adding on a new play set to our park, and how does that compare to a nearby park in another city? If they see that, they say, oh, I could use that, then they get login. So it's so hard to say in terms of how is each one individual using it, but in general, everybody has their own separate use cases depending on their department.
I'm sorry, Jack. I thought I was done. Can you import tables and layers into Placer AI, and also the map layers? Are they KMZ, KML, or shapefiles?
Let me share my screen. I think the overarching idea there, I think those would be like APIs in terms of bringing in other data sets. For example, if you're looking at the trade area one, we have shapefiles, KMZ, Excel, image, PDF. Everything is at least available in PDF form. I know for this one specifically, we have the shapefiles and the KMZ files. So, and yeah, with APIs, you can export our data to overlay with different types of things, like maybe a GIS tool or something like that.
And then if I import, say, a KMZ, KML, or a shapefile, Can I create a geofence around that point?
Yes. Yep. When in the kind of support or help and feedback portion where you request a point of interest, they will request that you send a KMZ file or shape file with along with that, and then they will geofence it that way.
Hey, Jack, it's Tammy. So when we were talking, one of the things that was really highlighted at our last meeting that didn't get brought up tonight was the liquor stores. If you could do a quick run on what originally, in our original presentation, that was the one that caught my eye, since we are dry here, and whether or not when the time would be maybe to put something on the ballot. Can you kind of run the numbers for what it would be for a liquor store in the city? Like a Specs or a Total Wine?
Do you mean the market outlook tool where it shows demand versus supply?
What analysis?
The one that would tell you like where the funds are, if we brought in a liquor store and we'd be, maybe there's too many around us and we'd think, oh, we need one, but it don't, maybe that's that negative number looking at what's all around us where other people are shopping for their liquor.
Right. Okay. I'm thinking what I do here, I'll do the void analysis and see what pops up. So we'll do that and then so for the market outlook tool, go down here, beer, wine, and liquor stores. So yeah, in the, I believe this is still that 2 mile area, there's a demand for 1.14 million, and there's an unmet supply of the same number because there's just no liquor stores in that area. You could also look at visitor journey and do I don't know how to look for it in here. I'm not sure if there's alcohol involved in this one. Maybe bars and pubs. Yeah, I don't see anything there. There's a tool in here. So place or extra reports. This is something that I wasn't able to cover, but just to quickly explain it, these are reports that you can request. They do not cost extra. But one of them is a retail leakage report. So it would actually explain what is for Manvel, what's your retail leakage? Where are people leaving to go spend their actual money? And what places are they visiting? And it would be a whole map. Can you guys see this one, the liquor store?
Could you enlarge it a little bit?
Yes. Does that help at all? So this is like a Twin Liquors store. There's one 6 miles away. There's 99 other locations in the state. But you could send this data along with our market outlook talking about the $1.14 million in unmet demand to them. And you can even see that Twin Liquors is currently expanding in the state. Looks like they've probably had one new location. There's specs here. Tammy, is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yes, sir, thank you.
So I have a two-part question. For the 16K a year, how many users would that come with? And is the account in 12-month increments only? Or could you do a 6-month, something like that, to see if it would be a good fit for the committee?
Right. Yeah. Minimum is a 12-month subscription. That's the least that we will do there. And then in terms of users, I would say really, anything under like 10 would be totally reasonable for something like 16 grand. Again, I'll kind of let you guys decide that, who needs it, in terms of access or logins. But that, again, something kind of with the organizational side is that we would have to determine, who those users are, and they have to work for the economic development, for the EDC. It couldn't be like a city worker email. So it's based off of your email. So maybe that actually could kind of clarify the whole general question, but about user or organization.
Do we have any more questions? Jack, one question. Can you explain what the different module for like the parks, what that would even be? What is that? Why is it different than the modules we're looking at, I guess?
Oh, yeah. I might have confused you when I said maybe like you guys would add something on. They would have access to the same information, same platform. They just look at it from a different lens. It's not particularly that they get like, oh, here's our parks side of the platform. They would just geofence their parks just like we geofence maybe a Starbucks or whatever, and look at it from a parks view.
So there's nothing different about a parks. It's just the same information. They just analyzing it a little different than what we might be analyzing it. Okay, cool.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. And they're generally looking at more of obviously how many people are coming to their parks, but then where they're coming from, which is similar to what you might be looking at. But again, you're looking at it from an economic development lens. They're looking at it from a how is our park performing and what's the health of the park.
So Jack, you had a screen up right at the very beginning that had the parks piece in there, and you mentioned parks specifically, but there were like 8 different pieces of it, and then you went to the economic development piece and said this is what the sales tax portion. But you had mentioned an additional cost when you said that. I guess was the additional cost because it'd be a different department utilizing? What was, I don't know, I guess I don't understand what that additional cost purpose would have been if it's all the same platform.
I'm thinking, I think you might be talking about when I was showing the sales trends. I think I said that was an extra cost. Is that what you were talking about?
No, it was right at the beginning when you had, if you go back to like the very first,
This guy?
Yes.
yes, that's the one.
Yeah. I may have misspoke. Maybe what I was referencing then was if you added some users for the parks department, where their goal was parks, that might be the added cost, because I guess maybe to open the curtain a little, what Placer's looking at when we're signing on a city is how do we scope this, right? We're gonna just scope this to our economic development team. They're the ones who are only utilizing it. Now, if you add on the Parks and Recs department, that comes with the extra cost. So maybe that might have been what I was referencing. Again, there's certain tools within Placer that do cost extra. The only thing that I showed you today that cost extra was the spend data.
Know in advance what we're looking for, as opposed to be able to get in there and play with the reports and like, oh, this is the one.
We can't back off Manvel.
Correct.
Right, so are we good? We'll work towards that in the future.
Okay, Jack, I think we still have some discussion on it, I think, going over time, but I think we're good with the presentation and all of our questions for you at this point. So thank you very much for all of that.
You're welcome. Thank you all very much again for the time. And Tammy, I'll follow up with you. If you guys have any extra questions, feel free to email them to me. If you need an example report or anything like that, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. But I'll connect with Tammy maybe tomorrow and kind of see what you guys came up with.
Thanks again.
Thanks all. Bye-bye, guys.
Okay, so there is no action needed to be taken for that. We will move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Can we get a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Any other notes, Tammy, before we finish? No. Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.